Well, Pixar's done it again. And I honestly did not expect it. Like, I was thinking I was gonna watch a decent Pixar movie. And I got a great one. I think growing up and watching this series progress over the years, I think now that the creators kind of saw where they were going with between where they ended with Toy Story 3 and where they started, I think they wanted to make a movie with just as important consequences as the last one. And I think the film succeeds because of that. Like, it not only lays the foundation that the first three movies made, but it also kind of adds new ideas that challenge and kind of question these layers. For example, the first one is, how do toys first become sentient? And we get this new character, Forky, who expresses it pretty well. And they had perfect casting with Tony Hale as Forky. And if you've seen his performance as Buster Bluth, he also adds that sort of naivete to that character. Obviously, Forky is a character created from scrap from a trash can by the toy's new owner, Bonnie. So when Forky first is introduced to the rest of the toys, his first instinct is go to the trash. And throughout the movie, Woody is trying to convince Forky about his importance to Bonnie. And this comes with a hilarious routine in the first third of the movie where Woody is trying to keep Forky from diving into any sort of trash can. I mean, it's funny, but it leads to our premise of the movie. And while Woody is having a conversation with Forky, trying to convince him that he's important to Bonnie, he has the role of a toy with an owner, and the purpose is to be played with. But the moment Woody mentions Andy, you can definitely feel his conscience kind of wavering a little bit, judging on previous experience and what people have told him in the past few movies. And I don't think we've seen that since Toy Story 2. Personally, because in Toy Story 2, Woody did question what was going to happen in terms of Andy growing up and, you know, his worst fear coming true in the next movie. So, obviously, you know, with all the encounters Woody has had, you definitely understand that maybe this mentality of I'm a toy and I have to be played with, it's going to fade a little bit. And I think this becomes more important when he encounters Bo Peep for the first time. Now, if you've seen the other Toy Story movies, you do know Woody and Bo Peep were an item in the first two. But nothing was really expanded upon until this movie. And they do have a beginning of why Bo Peep was not in Toy Story 3. So the moment they get back together, you definitely see what they have been through while they were apart now is kind of a key to, how their lives are now and how the relationship is between the two of them. And honestly, it's great to see Bo Peep fleshed out as a character and to see the counter argument of Woody's, I guess, sort of, the fact that Woody has been having this idea that he should be there for his owner. And, it's a really good dynamic, and I really loved it. But I think I can't go any further without mentioning all the other characters, especially Buzz, who, honestly, I would have loved to see more of, but I think he does a really great job. Well, not only, seeing... Well, first off, Buzz is a character who learns so much from Woody, and you can see it going to a point where he himself where he himself kind of has to have this little inner monologue within himself, kind of the same way Woody usually does. And I think it's not only funny, but again, a lot of the character development and the way they play it's very important, but it's not like you don't get a lot of chuckles from it, because you do. And I really like that. Just kind of the feeling that they're toys, but much like anything really, they kind of have a conscience, and so sometimes their conscience initially fails them, and they kind of have to develop this new way of thinking. And I really love that, because, to see these characters go from, they're just there for their owners, now movie after movie after movie, they kind of have to move on from their original ideas. Like Buzz had to move from being this, the idea that he's a space ranger, to now he is an actual child's plaything. But also, if he's a child's plaything, why does he think the way he thinks? Why does he, when he comes alive, he has his own motives. And that's really great. Speaking of which, I think it's great that the toys, this is a Toy Story movie that doesn't have a set villain. The character, a new character, Gabby, she first starts out as this. Well, first off, they're in an antique store, so obviously we're going to be surrounded by old toys that are, creepy now. And Gabby, she is surrounded by a lot of ventriloquist dummies, and but she does have her own motives. And she and Woody share a similar thing. And without giving too much away, she she is not really wanting it just because, and she, even though she goes in like very, suspicious ways of doing so, but like any toy, she wants to be there for a child. And I and I think it's great because I don't think we got that with a lot of the other kind of villain like toys we got in the other movies. So it's great. It's great that we get a little bit of a change up from that. Although I do want to point out a good similarity with, and that is with how Bonnie treats Forky, is kind of the same way Andy treats Woody. And the reason I say that is because when Bonnie loses Forky, her parents do all they can to help her find him. Kind of the same way Andy's mom in the first movie looked everywhere around the house to find Woody and Buzz for her son. And that was kind of a throwback that I kind of interpreted when I saw the interaction with Woody and Forky. Anyway, I should mention all the other characters. Like, for example, there is Ducky and Bunny, two stuffed animals who are played by Key and Peele. And yeah, they're comic relief, but like the rest of the toys, they are supplements to the main story without really screeching to a halt. They do have a gag throughout the movie that it's actually kind of funny. And but in the long run, they are, I feel like they are just about as important to the rest of the movie. Speaking of which, another toy who's very important, Duke Kaboom. And I'm surprised that Keanu Reeves, yeah, sure, John Wick, it shows that he can have range, but honestly, unless you knew beforehand, you'll never know this was voiced by Keanu Reeves. Like, the only reason I know is because they said his name. And he plays a toy who I guess kind of disappointed his owner. And it's funny to see him go from kind of the opposite of what Buzz went through. Well, not exactly, but kind of like the arc that Buzz had to go through in the first movie when he first discovered he was a toy. So, and he has a really good arc that goes from, that literally goes from like zero to hero, and that's great. And yeah, there are also other characters from a lot of other Pixar shorts that you might pick up, like those little Easter eggs, like that came from other Pixar shorts or movies. Like, those are, those are fun to check out. Like, for example, there was, Gary, the chess player in Toy Story 2, and but here there are a lot, and if you pick up on them, like, you'll know that. Pixar really does do the Easter egg thing well. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've got about the characters. The animation, my God, the toys have not looked any better. And obviously, I've seen all 4 movies at this point, but the design that they went through, I think over the years, we've added more detail to them. And especially the fur on the stuffed animals, obviously this is a big step up, like the hugest step up they've had since around like before the first one. There wasn't too much detail, so they couldn't get away with anything. Here, they have all the technology to give us more depth to the character, more facial expressions, but also more texture. So they used that to their advantage, and they didn't really, shrink on any of the details on the look, a way they express feelings. Also, the action is really good. It feels the most real it's been. Like, now we know that we can give live action more abilities with CGI. Look how much they could do now in this movie with everything rendered as every character is CGI, and how they're able to weave every inch of, they can even blend a lot of things. Like, animation can give us anything from any element of cinema, from horror to, adventure to fantasy. And I think Toy Story 4 is a good example of what can be done with these new advances in technology that has happened since the 90s, when it took almost years to create this movie. Like, honestly, I can commend them, and I hope this wins an Oscar for Best Film next ceremony. And I mean, I grew up with these characters. This to me was, I think, the way kids nowadays kind of see the Marvel characters. Except there has been a film every few years. And I think the reason why they hold up, the first 3 hold up, and why the 4th one, I think I think really is as good as it is. I feel like it's because we kind of felt like the toys would, we kind of saw the toys in our minds, how they would interact. And so every time the Toy Story movie would be released, we saw a window into that. We would always catch up every 10 years, and we'll see how the same toys interact, how their situation has become since the previous one. And in a way, we kind of see how much we've grown up. Not just as, as people, but as a society. And also, it's great to remind us that, that our imagination can still be a factor in, in our lives. Like, I honestly think, we, there was a joke in the Honest trailers for Toy Story that if the first movie was made today, it would be about an iPad. And I honestly don't believe that, because sure, we have technology that we can watch stuff on our screens now. But when it comes to it, we still need that human interaction to kind of access it, to kind of come up with these new ideas as well. So, I've always felt like I've always had a lot of, optimism about us as people, because, we can have all the best, playthings in the world, but I think the best tool in our accessory, in our utility, is our mind. The mind the minds of Pixar created these stories about toys coming to life. They gave them voices, they gave them development, they gave them motives, they gave them reasons for being. And I think creative thinking does still exist. And Toy Story 4 is a good example of that. And I recommend that any parent who does feel kind of disillusioned with that, bring their kids. They'll believe it. They'll see it on screen, and they'll love it just as much as you loved the previous movies you probably watched. It's never ending.